Hi guys, it's me, Arden Lee. I am back today with another video, and in today's video, I want to talk a little bit about anger and how to hold a space for anger in a relationship or friendship, any kind of relationship really, with someone that you love. And how do you hold space for that anger in a relationship that you don't want to give up on? I've talked a little bit about anger in one or two recent videos, and I've talked about how anger is a really good sign to tell us what we don't want, right? When we feel anger, we can understand, okay, I don't want this. I don't want this situation. And we can use that as a signpost, right? When we take it like it's like a weather vane. We turn it in the other direction and say, all right, if I don't want that, then I do want this, and how do I create this, right? And that's great. And it also shows us the utility behind righteous anger, behind political anger, behind anger at things like social injustice, any kind of injustice really. But anger takes on such a more personal and potent quality when it comes up in a relationship that we would really rather not walk away from. So I want to talk a little bit about that today. And if you're not yet familiar with me and my work, my name is Arden Lee. I'm the creator of the Repatterning Project, which is an 8-week course where we hack our beliefs, we optimize our mindsets by learning in a comprehensive view of our human operating system and the mechanics behind it, so that we can go in and repattern ourselves for the success, happiness, and abundance that we want in our lives. So if that sounds like something you're into, go ahead and check out the description box. I have a link to a free PDF guide about the course so you can learn about it. I also have a link to the Repatterning Parlor, which is the free Facebook group that I moderate. I would love to see you there. Come say hello and introduce yourself to the group and receive that support from like-minded individuals who are on a similar path, all of us on our paths to happiness and personal growth. So, all right, let's talk a little bit about anger. This seemed like a thing that was going around the collective quite a bit, maybe 2-3 weeks ago, and I wrote a post about it, and that seemed to resonate with people. So I thought I would make a video about it as well. There is this space that opened up for me in my imagination that was not something that I had really allowed myself to consider before, which is the ability to really hold and express anger in a relationship that serves the relationship rather than causes it to self-destruct. I was going to say destroys it, but that's not what I mean. Rather than causes it to self-destruct. Because I think that is a two-person thing. That is a two-person reaction. It's not the fault of one person's display of anger that would necessarily destroy the relationship, but rather it causes disruption in the relationship that really that relationship wasn't stable enough to handle to begin with, which causes that self-destruction of the relationship. So I want to talk a little bit about my experience in relationship before and what my go-to ways for handling anger were that were so limited, really. When I was I really wasn't in any serious relationships until I was in my early to mid 20s, and that scarcity, I wasn't even sexually active until after I turned 22, and I felt that scarcity in my life. I felt scarcity from when I was growing up in my teenage years, and everyone's starting to get boyfriends, and I just wasn't, and I couldn't understand. Like, I was like, what is wrong with me? What's why is nothing connecting? And weirdly enough, it's like I'm sure all the reasons why I didn't connect with people when I was so young are like probably all the reasons that that I'm amazing to connect with. Like they're probably all the best qualities about me, but me being this like strange, traumatized, ethereal being at 16 years old, I just didn't, I didn't really relate to a lot of people my age. And certainly not in an intimate relationship setting. A lot of the guys that I did like, did theater and ended up being gay after they graduated, and like no surprise because I was attracted to people, with sensitivity and an appreciation for the arts. And back when I was in high school, that that normally meant that you might be coming out after you graduated. Anyway, certainly with the models of gender that girls and boys when I was a teenager were held to. So anyway, growing up with this scarcity left me with an inability to express anger in relationship, and my early formative relationships as well, because that anger was not met with kindness and compassion. It was met with either more anger, or judgment, or gaslighting, or dismissal, or it was not held in a space where it could be heard and taken seriously and seen as what it was, which was a sign that I was feeling that something was extremely off. Whether I was right about that or it was my old wounding coming up, is I'm sure I'm sure it was both. I'm sure it was my wounding that was creating the things that were wrong in relationship to begin with. But regardless, it was not met. It was not met. It was not met at all. There was no room for anger. And so I learned, quote unquote, over time to edit out more and more of my anger. And as I'm sharing this, as I shared this in the post, I saw that more and more people could relate to this. So I want to speak to it a little bit. I want to speak to what happened. So what ended up happening, what I learned about how, ways that were safe to deal with my anger, was basically there were 4 approaches. One is I could express my anger. I could express it. I could embody it exactly as I felt it. And that would inevitably, lead to, in my experience, and then, of course, in my beliefs based off of my experience, and then in my experiences based off of my beliefs based off of my experiences, what would happen with that was essentially I would be shamed, and ultimately I would be... it would basically be, well, either suck it up or leave, or I guess this just isn't our time. I guess we're just not meant to be. I guess, whatever. So I was basically threatened with abandonment anytime that I embodied and expressed anger. So it was either like express my anger and risk the relationship just completely crumbling. That was option number 1. Option number 2 was to express my anger verbally from a very calm place, from about the same tone of voice that I'm speaking to you in this video now, and to sort of rationally say like, hey, I'm going to make an argument for why this isn't fair, how it's affecting me, and I'm going to, try and be as sweet and diplomatic about it as possible. And as you can imagine, that also didn't get me very far. I remember once with, being in a relationship and really having a hard time. I had gone through, it was when, for those of you who have followed some of my history, it was when the dungeon I was working at as a professional dominatrix in New York City, after it had been raided, and my boyfriend, who also owned the place where I worked, was going out to sort of, to have drinks with, all the former employees after I had spent all my money bailing him out of jail. And I understood he was like, I need to go and give these people some closure. Like, I need to go and we're just going to all like have drinks and whatever. He also had a bit of an issue with alcohol. So I really didn't feel comfortable with this. And I was like, I feel like, like you're abandoning me to go take care of other people who haven't been there for you in the way that I have. And I understand that, this is something that you need to do. And I understand, I'm not going to tell you not to do it, but please, like, for me, like, this is causing me an extreme amount of anxiety. I don't care how rational or irrational that is. Of course, now looking back at it, I'm like, yeah, I just suffered a lot of trauma. That was really natural. I was feeling anxiety. And I said, I know, but I'm just asking you, please, like, for my sake, I was this person's girlfriend of like 3.5 years at that point. And I just spent $25,000 paying his legal fees to keep him out of jail. I was like, just please, for my sake, please don't make it a late night. Like, please come home because I'm going to be feeling anxiety this whole time, basically. And that was exactly how I said it. He walked in at 5 in the morning, completely drunk off his ass. And at that point, I was like so anxious. I was already like on the floor having panic attacks, curling and rocking myself. And he came in and yelled at me for having exactly the panic attack that I told him I was going to have. So that was some of my experience with like, okay, that doesn't work either. So option 1 is express my anger, be shamed for it. Option 2 is, talk rationally about why I'm feeling a certain way, why I feel upset about something, and hope that maybe being diplomatic will sway someone's view. But, normally it did not because, I think a lot of people are like, well, if you can still speak, it's like such a double bind. People are like, if you can still speak rationally about something, are you really that angry about it? Are you just saying this to be manipulative instead? And it's like you can't win if you do express anger. If you do embody it, if you do let yourself show that emotion in the moment, then you're called crazy and irrational. And if you speak rationally, then you're not taken seriously. Option 3, those were 2 options. Option 3, which I normally went to, was fawn response, was like, well, what can I do to somehow, benevolently manipulate this situation so that I get my needs met by being pleasing, by plea bargaining, by like being super nice and super sweet. And if I'm just really great to this person, then maybe they'll stop doing the thing that is hurting me. And that was something that I did for a long time as well. Naturally, that also doesn't work. And option 4 was just leave the relationship, right? Which basically, was like option 1, I didn't do option 1 for a long time because option 1 just felt like option 4, but it took longer. So, if ultimately I was angry and nothing else was working, it was just like, well, I'm just going to leave the relationship. So I really haven't had a model of relationship at all that I can remember where I was allowed to be angry and where my partner was actually like, wow, thank you. I'm sure it was very brave of you to bring this to me. I appreciate that you're being honest with me about your feelings because we should probably create a solution to this problem that you're speaking about, a solution that works for both of us. So how do we fix this problem? That would be really, really nice. That would be a really, really nice thing. So as I was writing this, there were a lot of people who understood that who related to that feeling of being in relationship and not being able to express anger because it got shamed or any kind or there would be a threat of abandonment. Well, if you're angry about this, then just leave. Let's just end the relationship. We're just not meant to be together, or whatever that argument would be. So I'm really calling myself now to start reframing relational anger as a gift, as something that is, if there's a flaw in the system, if the relationship is a system and there's a bug in it that's causing a reaction that is unfavorable, that should be information that is useful to both partners. Seriously. Why do I have to say that out loud, right? So I don't want this video also to be about like justifying lashing out naturally. I would hope that also goes without saying, but I think that's important. I think it's important for us to know where the line is between being really real with our anger and expressing it in a way that conveys the truth of what we're feeling, and speaking our truth in our relationship and allowing ourselves to embody and express those feelings without attacking another person, right? So without name calling, without nastiness, can we say, hey, here are the facts of what happened. Here's as objective a view as I can possibly muster on what I feel went down. Here's the way that I interpreted it, and this is why that interpretation caused me to feel angry. And I'm feeling angry about this because XYZ, right? Even that still feels like super rational, but I feel like if I'm doing that in a video, I should, it's like better to start formulaic because our emotions are already going to be there in the moment. So yeah, this is certainly not to justify any kind of, emotional abuse or lashing out from, or taking out our wounding on our partner and using our anger to justify hurting someone else. But so many of us swing the pendulum so far to the other side because we've been tone policed, we've been gaslighted, we've been told that our anger is unacceptable. And we get to this point where we're so afraid to raise a hand at anything that is going wrong in a friendship, in a relationship, in a business partnership, whatever it is. We get so afraid of these negative emotions. So I want us to bring back this idea that we deserve partners and friends and business partners and people in our lives in general who understand that anger is a gateway to a solution. Anger is a gateway to the truth, right? It's often difficult for us to separate our anger from our wounding, to separate what is really happening in real time from our triggers, from the stories that we see based on what we've seen before in our past. So I don't want to gloss over that. I don't want to downplay that whatsoever. But I see too many people swinging to the other side. So this is my invitation right now, to be able to. This is my invitation to you to give yourselves permission to explore what a healthy expression of anger looks like. Because if your options in your head are repress my anger or leave the relationship, that's not going to lead to good relationships. And I invite you to set the standard of only choosing partners who are going to hold space for you in the truth of your emotions, and who will see the healthy expression of your anger as a gift of knowledge to the relationship, and will listen and will help you in co-creating actionable changes to the relationship that solve the problem that is causing the anger in the first place. And if someone is not willing to do that for you, I invite you to not be in the scarcity that I was in, and don't let that part of yourself get edited out, because it sucks living like that. And the more and more of those incidents that you repress, the more and more you edit away those parts of yourself, the more anxious and more anxious you become, because you're storing it all. And it's not fun. I've been there, and it's not a place I want to go back to. So if I don't want to go back to that, I need to start calling in healthy models for expressing anger in a way that that I can trust is serving a friendship or relationship, and is not a threat to it, and will not come with a threat of abandonment just because I'm feeling an honest emotion. So I invite you to do that too. Thank you guys for watching and listening. I'll see you in the next video.